Bitcoin is winning. Institutions are in. We got ETFs going live. Governments are reacting, but there's a risk to Bitcoin that almost no one is talking about. And it's got nothing to do with the price. It's got nothing to do with regulations, not even a market crash. And so today we're going to break down the biggest Bitcoin risk that most people are completely unprepared for, why it's getting worse as adoption grows, and how it quietly wipes out people who think they're safe. And of course, what you actually need to do now in order to avoid it. And to do that, I'm going to sit down today with Ben from BTC Sessions. He's one of the people who's helped more Bitcoiners actually secure their Bitcoin than almost anyone else that I know. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. First of all, Ben, thanks for joining me today. It's a pleasure. We've never actually got to sit down and do this, so I'm excited, looking forward to this. You've been a wealth of knowledge and really helping push people down the Bitcoin, I don't even want to say the rabbit hole, but maybe the sovereign stack, we'll call it that. But let's say as of right now today, Ben, Bitcoin's pretty much winning on a macro level. I mean, institutions are here, ETFs here, Larry Fink from BlackRock saying 5% adoption. But from where you sit, working directly with everyday Bitcoiners like you've been doing, what do you think the biggest mistake that you're seeing people make right now as adoption is accelerating?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people that have come in recently through the kind of the TradFi corridors, right? They see, oh, I can get Bitcoin through an ETF. As you said, Larry Fink's on it. It's being normalized.
Right.
There's ETFs, there's treasury companies, and so people, they'll look and they'll say, okay, I can get it in my traditional stock portfolio, and then that's it, and then I'm good. And I think it's a mistake to just stop there entirely. It's nice if this is your first little breadcrumb leading you down the path. That's a great piece of learning to begin with. But I think it's important that people, one, kind of realize why Bitcoin is important, and you talk about this a lot on your show. But two, how do you actually take advantage of this incredible technology, which, in my opinion, is one of the biggest leaps in technology that we've seen in our lifetimes? How do you actually participate in that and be using it in a self-sovereign way? Because let's not forget, part of the reason that Bitcoin is even needed in the first place is the control that the powers that be have, and their ability to debase the currency. And, Bitcoin wouldn't be needed if everything was above board.
Yeah.
So how do you actually use Bitcoin in a way where you can be self-sovereign and you can be secure, and you can actually make it so, whether it be an individual or whether it be an institution or a government, so it puts walls between them and your self-sovereign money in a way where even if somebody were to try to extract coins from you, you've got a strong enough setup that you in some instances can't even comply if you wanted to. So I think it's very important that people just learn. There's the traditional financial tools that you can use, but there's the truly self-sovereign, unshakable, own your wealth aspect of Bitcoin. And it's not nearly as difficult as people think. It's just new.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great place to start. I think about when you kind of sort of break down value creation, what businesses do, value creation, you think about problem solving. And so then you think about the bigger the problem I solve for the more people, the more value that's created. So if I'm a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon, I've created immense value, but for one person. But if I make personal computers, then I've created immense value for the whole world. And if you take like maybe the oldest problem in the world, which is how do I keep my property from being stolen? So we have villages and we have cities and we have kingdoms and we have countries to protect private property. But now Bitcoin gives us a way to protect our private property without having to have all that. So it seems like we should probably do that then, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, it takes protecting one's wealth, and it gives you the tools to have superpowers in doing so. In the digital realm, up till this point, pretty much if you have something of value, it's I need to trust somebody else to deal with it. And Bitcoin changes that script, flips that script entirely, and gives you access to insanely secure tools the likes of which puts you on par or even better than some of the biggest institutions on the planet. You have access to the same degree of security for your Bitcoin that BlackRock does, and you can do it yourself for very cheap. And people don't realize this,
Yeah.
but you can have that level of security.
Now, speaking of BlackRock, a lot of people think that seeing BlackRock, the evil empire, the largest asset manager in the world, coming into Bitcoin, seeing institutions coming into Bitcoin, this mass adoption, if you will, is Wall Street's adoption is sort of co-opting it. And
Yeah,
so
actually,
there's a big battle and debate about that. I've even seen people on X saying like, I'm out, like now it's co-opted, it's over, which I think is insane. But where do you see that kind of, how would you reframe maybe this long-term inevitability of what's happening and sort of where we're at with that?
yeah. One of the most difficult things that people continually have to grapple with in Bitcoin is that people you don't like, even your enemies, are going to use Bitcoin if they're not already. And them using it and being able to use it and not being excluded from that system just means that it's stronger and more resilient for yourself.
Right.
That's a really hard thing for some people to grapple with. And we've seen people rage quit over that time and again. I've seen people with the election of Trump. Well, it's public, so I'll chat about it quickly. But Mike Brock, okay, he was at Block under Jack Dorsey, was working there and everything, and he was a proponent of Bitcoin. He came to some Human Rights Foundation stuff and everything, and he just the other day, Bitcoin's over, it's done, it's failed, it's garbage. But when you really get down to the crux of what he wrote, it was, paraphrasing very simply, but people I don't like are using Bitcoin. He's not a fan of Trump. Trump kind of endorsed Bitcoin and went to the crypto route and all that.
Yeah.
Whatever. But again, like we see that. But as you said, we're also seeing kind of hardened self-sovereign Bitcoiners say it's been co-opted. I'm out. Why? Because Wall Street, BlackRock, these institutions, these treasury companies, so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, no matter who else uses Bitcoin, it doesn't preclude you as an individual from being self-sovereign and holding the fruits of your labor in a money nobody can print. So, yeah, I don't think people rage quitting over others using Bitcoin is stopping, and I think we'll probably see more of it in the future. But at the end of the day, every single person on this planet, if they want to, can go out and use Bitcoin and secure it if they choose to. You're going to have to reconcile the fact that people you don't like can do that too.
The part that you opened with, I think, was the most powerful. It's not just that you ended with that you have to be okay with people you don't like using it. But what you said at the beginning was what you also have to recognize is that people you don't like using it actually makes it better. Which is like, wow, okay, so it's not just I have to be okay with it. It actually is good for me that they're using it. So I think that's important to understand. Yeah. And like all things, they start small and niche and cool and core, and then eventually they get gentrified. This area of town gets blown out. This cool restaurant bar gets blown out. I'm from Southern California, so action sports, skateboarding or surfing is core, and then it gets blown out. And so, Bitcoin started with these cypherpunk roots, and now it's getting blown out. Right now, you got BlackRock in there, but it doesn't change that Bitcoin is still there for the cypherpunks. I was in Prague, and I was on a panel, and we were talking about this, and it's like when Bitcoin started, it was just the cypherpunks, and it was a email newsletter, and there was a dozen people. Today, there's 10,000 or more cypherpunks working on it, and sure, BlackRock's there too, but there's way more cypherpunks today than there were in the beginning. So, how do you balance, I guess, both of those?
Yeah, well, we're seeing both ends be built out. We're seeing ETFs and financial products being created en masse. You can go and you can shop from a shelf full of those options. But at the same time, at the other end of the spectrum, we've never had more people working on open source projects that grant people the ability to secure their Bitcoin in different ways, additional layers to be able to use it day to day in a private way. We have an insane amount of projects. I just returned from the African Bitcoin conference, and the use case for people throughout the continent of Africa when it comes to Bitcoin is very markedly different from what you would see at a Western conference. I went there, not a single mention of treasury companies and ETFs,
Right.
Obviously,
Yeah.
the entire weekend. But what was mentioned is our money's broken. I don't have a bank account. Transacting between countries is non-existent with our existing rails. If I have my local currency and I step outside of my border, it's literally worthless. I cannot even exchange it. My country has hyperinflation. They're trying to impose CBDCs on me. All of these are the real issues that are happening there. And these people are not concerned that BlackRock is also using Bitcoin. They're concerned that Bitcoin is working for them. And how do we inform the masses where we're from that this can help them? And so it's important to know that what's happening in the West isn't the same as maybe what's happening in the global South. And just because one thing is, and one use case is being pushed to the forefront at Western conferences, doesn't mean that people that are using Bitcoin for, we'll say, more cypherpunk ideals are stopped from doing so. In fact, it's absolutely flourishing right now.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I was on someone's podcast last week, and they're like a 28-year-old guy. He owns a gold company, and he's definitely a big-time gold bug. And, he was just like, I just don't understand, Bitcoin because like gold, this and that. And he's like, I'll just buy my gold and I'll just stay here in America. Like, I'll just do that. And I'm like, listen, man, like America is 4% of the world's population. 4%. So you have to think bigger. And so we have something like Bitcoin that's like this global monetary regime change. And so it's like the US, 4%, the West is even still a small percentage of the world. And like you're saying, in Africa, in Afghanistan, women can't even have bank accounts, or in North Korea, no one can have bank accounts. Right. And so like thinking about it in those bigger pictures. But I've heard you say before, I think you said that if Bitcoin could go on to go from wherever we're at, close to 100,000 today, up to $1 million, but maybe still fail its mission. Yeah. So how could it fail the mission, and what does winning actually look like then?
You've heard me talking about investing in layers and things like the reason you have to work so hard is because your money doesn't. Well, I want to invite you to a special event I'm having, a 3-day live event called the Wealth Operating System. It's an accelerator event where I'm going to teach you all the tools that the 1% use to have their money work harder than they do, getting their money to do 1 job, 2 jobs, 3, 5 jobs at once, so it can work faster and harder than you. Over 3 days, we're going to go deep. I'm going to bring in guest speakers. It's workshop style. I got about 15 tools, and we're going to go through a methodical process so you can learn how to reclaim 10 to 15 hours of your time back per week, how to keep more of your money, how to invest it and multiply it faster than you've ever imagined. And by the end of it, you'll have a 90-day plan of exactly what you need to do to go make 2026 the best year you've ever imagined. It's all going to be live. It's all going to be virtual. There's a link down below if you want to come check out. I'll put a QR code up on the screen. If you want to get your money working harder than you do to grow your wealth faster than you've ever imagined, like the 1%, check out the Wealth Operating System Accelerator event. Check out the link down below.
Well, I would say if Bitcoin simply becomes a store of value for people to invest in that is entirely through regulated, custodied solutions, it's not a complete failure, but it's more of a failure than I would like. It's still a great way to step outside of the rampant money printing and the debasement and the extraction of the fruits of one's labor. But it's just another thing being monetized for that purpose. It's a new real estate. It's a new whatever. And sure, maybe a generation gets the benefit of, a similar type of situation where, the boomers with real estate, and that was an amazing bet, an amazing thing to be a part of. And maybe that's what it becomes. But for me, that's not compelling. What's compelling is dismantling this exploitative system that we have, where you have the powers that be that are able to dictate and siphon off wealth and redirect it wherever they want, and have an entire populace that is kind of asleep at the wheel as to what's truly happening, and mistakenly pointing their fingers at the vendor whose prices have gone up. I bought this from you. It's more expensive.
Right.
You're the person to blame. When really, like, everything is going up because the reality is the money is becoming less valuable. And so to contrast that, I think success looks like Bitcoin becoming the money, but we have a huge hurdle to get over to get to that point. I see a bit of that happening in places where the money is so bad that people just decide, okay, well, I'm going to use this instead. Like, what do I have to lose? But less in the West. And I worry that the West is in this kind of mid-tier level where it's inflation is bad and standard of living is dropping, but not bad enough to make people act like they're just it's the frog in the boiling pot of water kind of situation. So yeah, failing to me, or at least failing more than I would like, looks like Bitcoin just being another stock. Success to me looks like you eventually are living on a Bitcoin standard and you have privacy tools that you can use. And that not only that, but your average person has far greater privacy assurances than they do now. And the people whose job it is to hold and protect capital for many, many people, so whether it be companies, institutions, governments, I think they should have the maximum amount of scrutiny. So on-chain Bitcoin addresses that can be audited by everyone and see exactly where the money is and where it's moving and all of that. Whereas your day-to-day person will be using, layer 2 solutions that have, much better privacy, eCash and stuff like that, where you can't really see what's going on. That's the opposite of what we're getting right now. It's like the government is opaque as hell, and your average person has to report their $600 Venmo transaction.
I can't speak for Canada, but in the United States, it's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and the government are public officials. So to the point that you're making, all of that is supposed to be public. We are supposed to be private citizens. So they are supposed to be public, and everything they do is supposed to be known and seen and shown and have transparency. We as private citizens and individuals should have all that privacy, but to your point, it's reversed, and they want to see my $600 Venmo transaction, and we can't see how the billions of dollars are being siphoned off in Medicaid or whatever we're seeing right now going on.
Yeah, the amount of corruption at the top, and the incentives are there, right? The incentives are there for people to misappropriate funds, to steal from the masses, and then favor their friends and their businesses and all that kind of stuff. There's just so much of it, and then anybody who may have been able to escape inflation and hold on to a money nobody can print. It's like, oh, we're going to need to tax you on that as well. I've even saw there's a recent story. Where was it? It was out of in October, out of South Korea. The tax office there actually said that they're now going to be targeting individuals where they say, if we think you owe us money in regards to Bitcoin or whatever, and we think that you have it in self-custody with hardware, we have no problem entering your home and looking for your hardware
Wow.
and seizing it and compelling you to give up your seed phrase or give up your pin to your device and everything. So I did a whole video on like, if and I'm not telling people to break the law or anything, but like laws can suddenly be changed on you too. And so like if you want a situation where something like that happens and you don't think it's lawful and you want them to have to actually prove their case in point in court before they get a hold of your assets, because we see all the time civil asset forfeiture. It's like, we're going to steal your stuff first, and then it's on you to then pay to prove the innocence of the asset. It's not even yourself. Like, you don't even have to be charged with a crime. It's like the asset is charged as being implicated in a crime, and you have to then prove. So I made a whole video on like, how do you have a setup that is resilient enough that even if somebody kicks open your door and says, we know you have Bitcoin, we know you have a device here that is part of a setup to secure it, how do you make it so that they cannot get their hands on it still? So there's, again, as we were talking earlier, there are tools out there that can at least put that wall in between where they don't get to steal and then have you argue to get it back. They have to prove why they should have
Well,
it.
I want to have you walk us through that, because you are certainly the expert to do that. But just kind of going back to this main key point here. So failure. So when you look through thousands of years of monetary history, you see that it's typically like an evolutionary process. So you find a cool rock or feather or seashell and you collect it, and then enough people collect it, so then you start storing value in it, and then enough people use that, has money attributes, it moves to a medium of exchange, and then if enough people use that, it can be a unit of account. So you sort of have this evolutionary process. And so I think what you're saying is if Bitcoin goes from the collectible to the store of value, and then it kind of stops there, and maybe even worse, the store of value is stuck in institutional rails, then it's sort of a failure if it doesn't actually continue the evolutionary process to becoming a medium exchange, I guess. So if that's what you're saying, and then what would cause it to stall out and stop there?
I think it's in the hands of the individuals. It's in the hands of the Bitcoiners. At some point, somebody had to be a pioneer and say, I'm going to treat Bitcoin as a collectible. I'm willing to pay a price for it. And so, a price was attached and people began to speculate on it. At some point, somebody had to say, no, this is value. This is sound money, and I'm going to treat it as a store of value. At some point, somebody had to pioneer the way and say, I'm going to use this as my treasury. And in the same way, I think at some point, and it's already happening, some people have to, even though we know that it's going to be incredibly valuable to hold on to Bitcoin in the long term, some people have to forge the way and say, I'm going to push it to the next step, which is using it as money, as a medium of exchange. And so I think that's incredibly important. We see these kind of local circular economies popping up in different places. In fact, after this interview, I'm going to the local circular market that I created in my city.
Oh, really?
That we've been running for 2 years. And so I think it's so important, because how do you become more than a store of value? How do you become not only more than a store of value, but truly unshakable in no longer having to rely on third parties to do things? And in my opinion, that is building communities where like-minded people understand this is better money and also are willing to trade their goods and services for that. And that's kind of what we built here. And we see this echoed in other places like Bitcoin Beach. And there's a whole map that you can look at of different Bitcoin circular economies popping up. So That's where
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah,
win.
so it's a combination of things coming together. One is just time, so allowing that evolutionary process,
For
but you
sure.
need the sale ability, so you need enough people that will accept it to make it liquid. Um, you have, in a lot of countries in the United States, you have tax implications, and so there's
Yeah.
constantly being proposals to sort of get over that hurdle. But then you also have the volatility issue. I mean, Bitcoin's a 50 vol asset, which is great. I want it to go up 50% a year. I don't like it when it goes down 50% a year as much, but that's what a 50 vol
Yeah.
asset is. And so then you sort of also have to sort of kind of keep those things in mind. But over time, more people will accept it. It becomes more saleable. Over time, the asset value will get bigger and the vol will go down, which is bad in a sense where it doesn't go up as much, but it can be used as a medium exchange better. And then I am hopeful that we'll see some of these tax implications change. And if not, they might just be forced to change from the people
Yeah.
using them.
And I'll make a case really quick here for while navigating that sounds tricky. Here's my case for why I'm a crazy person and actually have been living on Bitcoin. 95% of my income has been Bitcoin since 2020. And I live on it pretty much exclusively. My case is this. Number one, tax implications up and down. Oh geez, what if there's a capital gain in event triggered and da da da. Okay, well, if you incur a taxable event and there's a capital gain to be paid, that means your money, your day-to-day money has increased in purchasing power, and you then have to give back a portion of that increase to the government. You're still up. And what that means in practice is, when's the last time that happened to your dollars?
It's a good way to
Obviously,
look at it.
like, they don't charge.
You're looking at
Yeah,
what you
so
get, not what you lost. That's, it's a
yeah,
good reframe.
exactly. And so it's like saying I don't want to win the lottery because there'll be taxes on it. It's like you're still doing better than you were. And on the flip side of that, if there's a loss at the time when you spend your Bitcoin, you can claim
A loss.
a capital loss on that as well, which also not possible on the dollar, which does that perpetually forever.
Good points.
So
Good
there's
points.
those two things, and then on top of that, like, yeah, it's not going to be as easy. It's ideological if you're going to make that leap, but it's not as difficult as one would think. And yeah, in terms of volatility, I send out invoices. I get paid at the beginning of the month. And the way that I avoid volatility in the short term is, as soon as the invoices come in, I know exactly what my expenses are for the month. I just pay those right away. And then the rest is long-term savings. And it does an extra thing for me down the line is this Bitcoin that I have either, in my personal savings or as the company treasury, if there's an expense that we're deciding on, it becomes, do I actually want and really need
Yeah.
this thing? Or would it be better to save? And sometimes the answer is yes, it's important. We should get this. Other times it makes me more conscientious
Sure.
about my expenses after the fact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's kind of the thing with fiat is that maybe some of the government officials wanted to continue to lose value, so they incentivize us to spend as if humans need as if humans need incentive to spend. But the flip side of that is, if your money can buy you more in the future, could I just wait a little bit longer to where it's cheaper for me? And so that's kind of the unlock. And I'm just going to tell the audience real quick, that's great for Ben. He gets paid in Bitcoin. You don't. But you could do the same thing. You just flip it. So he gets paid in Bitcoin. He converts what he needs to pay his bills into dollars, saves in Bitcoin. You get paid in dollars. You pay what you need in dollars and convert the rest to Bitcoin. So you can do the same thing. You just invert that.
Exactly.
Let's go back to the South Korea, kick your door down. What are you going to do? And let's not even go to South Korea, but I've been seeing more and more headlines of people being targeted, known crypto people being targeted, home invasions, wrench attacks, as we will, things like that. So how do you, and you work with, you have a service where you help people sort of kind of start using this self-custody. So where does somebody start? And then how do you think through walking them into the process, and how should they evolve into that? Every day we see headlines about inflation and debt and diminishing control over our own money. That's why I always come back to Bitcoin, because it's built for generations. It's built for legacy. But protecting your Bitcoin legacy the right way, it's not always simple. It demands discipline, focus, and the right partner. Now that's why I personally use Unchained Signature. It's a premium private client service for serious Bitcoin holders who want expert guidance, resilient custody, and an enduring partnership. Now with Signature, you're paired with your own dedicated account manager, someone who understands your goals, helps you every step of the way. You're gonna get white glove onboarding, same day emergency support, personalized education, reduced trading fees, and priority access to exclusive events and features. Unchained's collaborative custody model is designed to provide the same security as the world's biggest Bitcoin custodians, but for those who prefer to hold their own keys. Now, I've been using and recommending Unchained for years. I even got my parents to set up with them. So if you want to get set up, check out Unchained Signature at unchained.com/markmoss. And as a loyal listener, I got a discount for you. Just use code MOSS10 at checkout to get 10% off your first year, because your Bitcoin isn't just for life, it's for generations.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first initial steps, you're going to keep it as basic as possible. One, where am I going to obtain my Bitcoin? And depending on the locale, it's going to be different for everyone, but there's plenty of options depending on your country and city and so on and so forth. Then it's the basics, like just dipping your toe in. How do I get something as simple as a wallet on my phone or computer? And just familiarizing yourself with, I can download an app. What are good apps to download? And if I break my phone or delete the app or something, how do I actually practically recover access to my funds? So just getting your mind around that. Those are kind of your initial two steps.
Understanding what a key is, and then understanding how to back up the key.
Exactly. And so there's a common misconception, and it makes sense with the name that we call a Bitcoin wallet. People think, oh, my Bitcoin's in the wallet. Mm-hmm. That's not exactly how it works. Obviously, Bitcoin is just a global ledger of who owns what. Mm-hmm. So what the hell's in the wallet? The wallet is a key to your money. And so that key, you can unlock your money and send it wherever you like. And much like a key, you can make copies of that key. So when you set up a wallet, it'll say, write down these 12 words mm-hmm. and keep them safe. That's literally a spare key. Mm-hmm. And so you can always, if you delete the app or break the phone, you can go back and get those 12 words and access the money again. But it's important, since your key is information, that nobody gets a copy of that information, because then they can unlock what it unlocks, which is your money. Yeah. So, in terms of keys, we're talking about wallets on your phone or computer. That would be known as a hot wallet. So the keys are on something, on a device that is directly accessing the internet, which is okay for, day-to-day spending, small amounts, stuff like that. Think cash in your pocket. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But
you wouldn't walk around with your life savings in your pocket.
Exactly. You're not gonna be stacking tens of thousands of dollars in cash in your pockets, and
unless you're Floyd Mayweather. You seen that guy walking around the $10,000 stack sticking out of his pockets?
No. Yeah. So then what's the next step from there? And that would be something called cold storage. And that simply means that the keys to your money are on a device that never directly connects to the internet. Something like a cold card or a Trezor or a Jade, basically just little devices. I mean, I'll hold up one as an example, but little devices that, and they have many different form factors, where it literally just holds the keys to your money and keeps them safe. And when you need to access them, you plug it into a computer or scan QR codes to communicate, whatever it may be, or tap NFC. It just allows you to approve transactions. So those are kind of your main three things. Where am I getting Bitcoin? Learn some basics about hot wallets on your phone, and then decide on a piece of hardware to keep yourself secure. There's more beyond that for the, somebody kicking in your door, but those are your starting points.
Yeah. Those are good. The other thing I'd say is that too much today, I see that people lack any nuance in their thinking. So this doesn't have to be one or the other, black or white. Like, you can have some of it on an exchange, and then you could try to pull a little bit off and do that. And like you already said, like maybe some little bits amounts in your hot wallet and some is in cold wallet. And so you can start to spread this around a little bit. It's like it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Start with just getting some Bitcoin. Like, how about just start with that? And then, like you said, how about a little bit into like hot storage? Okay. Now, how about a little bit into cold storage? And you're sort of like, as you said, dipping your toe in the water, and you're sort of learning. And there's trade-offs to all of these, right? So there's trade-offs. So it's not one is better than the other. They're better in different circumstances. And so understanding that and realizing that whatever your stack looks like, it could be split up. Like I have it in multisig. I have it in a couple different single SIGs. I have some on a hot wallet. I got some on Venmo. I got some on River, right? Like, and it's like kind of like spread around, right? And it's all different use cases there.
Yeah, of course. And again, as you said, like you don't have to go all or nothing right out the gate. Everybody learns step by step. And so when I see people that are criticizing other people for not being fully self-sovereign the second they get into Bitcoin, it's like, guys, this is not how people learn. And we need to realize that if somebody's first foray into Bitcoin, you're like, all right, step one, you're going to set up a Bitcoin node. And then you're going to, it's like, they're already turned around and out the door.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to make fun of somebody who's just starting their learning journey. It's like making fun of a child learning the alphabet because they haven't read Human Action yet.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and I think it's important to like not go past your technical limitations. And I made the mistake back, 2017, 2018, Bitcoin was cheap and I was kind of throwing around like chiclets and I was paying friends in Bitcoin. And I'd say, hey, download this app, let me send it to you. But I never really gave them the education past that point. And years later, I check in, it's like, man, that's probably worth $100,000 now. Do you still have that? And they're like, I don't even know where that phone is anymore or whatever, right? And so it's like, now, today, it's like, well, how much time do I have to spend with you? How technical do I think you are? And I might just tell you just to like open up an account on River and just buy it real quick, or something. And then like we can get to the next point later. So I think it's important to understand that. But let's just talk about the self-custody because that's important and it's scary. So most of us are used to keeping money in banks. We're used to having somebody else protect that money for us. Of course, Bitcoin gives us the ability to do that, and I think we should. But what would be, because it is scary, and I'm sure that's why people hire you because they're scared, what would you say the biggest things that they should be scared of and they should just pay attention to?
Right. So when it comes to an individual kind of messing up and losing Bitcoin, what are the common things that happen? So one of them would be just not being aware of what you've done and unlocking yourself out of your Bitcoin, screwing up, losing things, overcomplicating things in some instances. And so what I typically say to people is, as we alluded to, dabble first, become familiar, just practice, try a couple things, send some transactions, and revisit your setup either maybe every 6 months, but once a year is probably good. And just do a quick little audit of, okay, I've got this device, I've got my backup, and this is where they are. And this person, family member, trusted person, is aware of where I've kept this stuff too. So if something happens to me, my family knows where to find it and what to do. I do this little audit with my wife once a year. We go through and say, okay, very important. We want to make sure if anything happens to me or both of us, that the kids get what they need and all of that. So we just go through and we say, okay, this is here, this is here, this is how to access it. And we left a note with family and how to get a hold of everything.
That's a great tip, by the way, and that's not what I would have expected to hear from you. And I just want to pause there because that is super important. And myself, I've been guilty of just leaving things too long. And I like the fact of refreshing yourself to sharing it with your friends, family, loved ones. I would add a third piece on there, and this is just something I've been thinking about lately. Before we started recording, I told you I've gotten to the point, my kids have gotten a little bit older where I'm now taking my wife, and we were just coming back from a trip, and I was like, what if both of us died? And like, sure, like my daughter, okay, calls our attorney and like, okay, they'll figure out how to get the life insurance and okay, they can figure out how to get some of the Bitcoin. But what is she gonna do with it? Like, what is she gonna do with the money? And even like what happens what's the first step? What's the first 30 days? What's like, so sort of like this set of instructions. And then even, okay, so now you've got all this money, like now what do you do with it? So I've started to even think longer term about creating those instructions for them. So piece to add, but anyway, go ahead and keep going.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and again, what I'm talking about here is just some of the basics. Like if you just have like a device and a backup, then you would kind of do that self audit once in a while. You know, we've gone kind of beyond that. You mentioned Multisig, and we do indeed use Multisig. And if anybody is listening that's unfamiliar with that, think of a regular Bitcoin wallet as you have a digital vault and you have one key that opens it. Maybe you have backup keys just in case. Multisig would be like a digital vault that has multiple keyholes with different keys for each, and you need a certain number of those keys simultaneously to unlock your money. So maybe you have 3 keys and you need at least 2 of those in order to access the funds. That means you can lose some stuff and still have access. And so
it's like a war movie when they want to like launch the nukes. They need 2 keys and they have to like turn at the same time or something.
Yeah, exactly. And so it gives you a couple things. So we back to the South Korea tax office kicking in doors or whoever kicking in doors. When you have a multisig with multiple keys and you disperse those to different locations, somebody getting access to one key does not give them access to all of your Bitcoin. In fact, there's ways you can set it up where getting access to one key, they don't even know that it's part of a multi-sig. You could have like a decoy amount on that. So there's lots of different cool things you could do. But nonetheless, we've got set up a multi-sig with kind of an automated inheritance part to it that triggers something. And I basically set it a year in advance. Right. And I get a warning about 2 months beforehand. And this is all like I have unilateral control. There's just an external company that has one key. And so they can't run off with funds or anything like that. They can only help sign a transaction. But it's all automated. So if something happens to me and I'm not able to bump that 1 year threshold forward each year, then my loved ones will get an email that says your inheritance is ready to claim. Download this application. And then I provided them with some very basic information. It's like 3 English words and a password. And just by having that information, they will be able to gain access to the inheritance that was secured by that multi-sig
And the
vault.
company will send them that email with those 3 words, you're saying?
Yeah. And you can have multiple. No, the company doesn't have the 3
okay.
words. Yeah. So this is.
So you have to leave some other instructions for them to get that from you. And then when they get the email from the company, then they'll be able to complete that.
Exactly. I give them the 3 words and the password. And I can have multiple copies of this and, keep this safe, keep a secondary copy here, whatever, but multiple copies of it. Anybody getting a hold of that information right now, they can do nothing with
What company is that with that you do that with?
So this is Nunchuck. These are actually the guys that, this is the same wallet we used during the Canadian trucker protest.
Okay.
And they're the same guys that told the Canadian government to go shove it when they requested user information.
Yeah. Okay. So they offer that.
They're really solid.
Okay, so it's like a multi-sig. They keep a key. Every year they send you an email. If you don't reply, then they'll send an email to your loved ones. They have the second key, and then they can get access to the funds.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's from the person receiving the inheritance standpoint. It's very simple. They get an email. It says that they're ready to receive their inheritance. They type in 3 words, a password. They now have access.
I love it. A lot of services have this these days. So if you're listening, just go check with a lot of services. I just was talking with River. That's who I use here in the U.S. And they have something sort of built in. I know Unchained has like an inheritance. So there's a lot of options out there, but it's definitely something.
Casa, another one.
Yeah, Casa. I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around, but I mean, Michael Saylor talks about Bitcoin as like 1,000-year asset, but we could at least think of it as like 100-year asset. Like this is going to go a long time, and so you want to really be prepared for that. And because you are taking custody of that, you need to make sure that you're able to pass that down. I mean, even if you had a bunch of stocks and a bunch of accounts, you'd still want that listed for your heirs. But because of the self-custody point, it becomes much more a much bigger deal. Just real quick for the advanced users. How do we handle the kick down my door wrench attack? I'm being interrogated. Someone wants to steal my private keys of the government.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of things. So I mean, the most resilient thing is a multisig setup with multiple keys geographically distributed. Because in that case, somebody kicks open your door, they get a hold of a key, even if they know for sure it's part of a multisig. It's like, yo, you're buying a plane ticket.
Yeah.
There's no way for me to comply with you right now.
Yeah.
Now, beyond that, if you maybe don't have the technical expertise for a multisig yet, or you just don't have it set up that way yet, but you want to make yourself resilient to physical coercion. I held up this thing earlier, the cold card, just an example of a hardware device, but some of these hardware devices have the ability to implement a trick pin. So you have a regular pin to log in, but then you have like a trick pin that does something different if you enter it. And what you can do with those trick pins is on the device I held up here. Some of them, if you type it in, it will look as if the device is blank and has never been initiated, or it will take you to a decoy wallet with, maybe a few $1,000 so they feel like they got something, or you can program it to the point where it literally bricks the device and deletes all information on it. So you can have different things. So, okay, I'll just put in my PIN and then it does the thing that you programmed it to do.
Do most devices have that?
There's a bunch. So I know that like cold card, you can really customize it and set different parameters. I believe that Trezor and a couple others have different options. I know the Ledger has like a different pin will take you to different accounts. So yeah, there's different ways of doing it. But yeah,
I think of it like I spend a lot of time in Mexico. I'm an hour from the Mexico border. We have a house down there, so I'm down in Mexico a lot. And the good and bad is that you can typically buy your way out of trouble. The bad is they sometimes get you into trouble so they can get some of your money. But you get pulled over for speeding, you just give the guy some money. But what people have done for decades, probably even longer, is I'm going to keep a little bit of money here, and then the rest of my money stays hidden over here. So then when you get stopped, it's like you pull it out. It's like, this is all the money I have. If they search you, it's like, it's all the money I have, but they get something. And they feel that's all the money, but they don't find the rest of the money. And so it's sort of the same concept. And so, if you were being held captive by some, attackers or something like that, you can give up a little bit. They don't know how much you have. Hopefully they don't know how much you have. And so you're like, okay, well, let me open the safe. Okay, like here's my thing, and here, let's open it up. And okay, it's got whatever it's got in there, and and at least they get something. They'll probably leave you alone more than if you bricked it, and then they're probably really mad or whatever. They know you got a backup.
Exactly. Now there's an interesting thing here that you mentioned. You said, hopefully they don't know how much you have. And it does point to, another important piece of the puzzle is privacy. And so a lot of people don't realize functionally how Bitcoin works in the back end. And just by using regular Bitcoin transactions, you can begin to paint a picture for others of what you own, if you're not careful in how you do that. So there are tools that can help you be more private. Things like CoinJoin. I was just talking to the Samurai guys that unfortunately are going away here.
Terrible.
But the tools live on. And
so besides the mixing services, like you're talking about CoinJoin, which they're getting in trouble for, what are some basic best practices that somebody could do to maintain that privacy? Governments will never stop printing money, so inflation, it's not going away. Now, if your money's not earning at least 10% a year, you're losing purchasing power. Now, that's why I talk about Bitcoin. It's the number one way to beat inflation and secure your future. And the question I get asked almost every day is, where do you buy your Bitcoin? Now, for years, I've personally used River.com, and I only take on sponsors that I use and I trust. And I trust them because River's Bitcoin only, they have 100% reserve, and they keep your Bitcoin safe in cold storage with no middlemen. And you can actually talk to a real person, a US-based support dedicated manager. Now, try getting that peace of mind from Coinbase. Of course you can't. Now, the perks, if you set up auto buys, you can pay 0 fees. Plus, instead of your bank paying you, 0.4% on cash, River pays you 3.75% on cash paid in Bitcoin. So if you're ready to build your Bitcoin position with confidence, go to river.com/markmoss and get up to $100 in Bitcoin when you sign up. Because freedom starts when you own your money, and your money starts with Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're using regular Bitcoin transactions, so there's on-chain Bitcoin, and then there's like layer 2, like Lightning transactions, things like that. So regular on-chain Bitcoin transactions, there's a concept known as coin control or UTXO management. But the general concept is whenever you receive Bitcoin, it's kind of like you're receiving a physical bill. And when you look into your Bitcoin wallet, it's not just a singular balance like a bank account. It's more like cash. And you can look in, you can see all of the different bills there. And so when you go to pay somebody, you can think of it like pulling out a bill. So if you're at a corner store and you're buying a candy bar, pulling out a $5 bill is not a big deal. But if you were to pull out, and I know it doesn't exist, but you pull out $1 million bill, the clerk working at the store sees not only what you're paying for the candy bar, but they see the change. And there's a real problem there because that person knows that you have $1 million.
Oh,
And
so if I send Bitcoin, $5 of Bitcoin out of my account, they're going to see that there's $1 million in that account.
Yeah, and it's not always like that. Like it's kind of, again, your digital wallet, there's individual pieces of Bitcoin in there. And so if you have a wallet where you can actually see those pieces, you can be more conscientious in how you're spending your Bitcoin. But if you think like you go buy a t-shirt online and you're using a chunk of Bitcoin that's sizable to buy a $20 or $30 t-shirt, and this person now knows you have $1 million and they have your address, which they're shipping the t-shirt to. And that may be a compelling reason for them to buy a plane ticket and pay you a visit. So UTXO control or coin control is something that you can do very easily just by looking into any wallet that shows you that stuff, because it's all there. It's just
the ones you mentioned before, the Cold Card, the Trezor, they have those?
Yeah. So you can see that in those. You can see it. So when I use a hardware device like a Cold Card or a Trezor, I actually don't use the Trezor app. I use something called Sparrow Wallet on my computer, and it gives me more insight into that. The Nunchuck wallet on mobile will show you that stuff in the background, along with a bunch of other ones. So yeah, having that is helpful. But I'd see more than that. If you're spending, jump over to a wallet that gives you additional privacy just day to day, and these would be the layer 2 kind of Lightning wallets. So something like Aqua Wallet or the Bull Bitcoin wallet, or really like any Lightning wallet as a sender is going to give you additional privacy benefits because people can't really trace back and see where it came from and what the balance was.
So if you can spend on Lightning on layer 2, then that solves pretty much all of those issues. If you're spending off of your primary layer 1 address, then you want to make sure you're not sending from the wrong address. What about receiving and always receiving to a new address?
Right. Yes. So this is, luckily most Bitcoin wallets now do this by default, but you don't want to just have a single Bitcoin address that you're always sending
What
to.
about your business though? I mean, you can't change your Bitcoin wallet for your business every day, every single payment you receive.
You can indeed.
It's not very practical.
No, it's automated. You don't need to deal with it. So there's a few different tools out there, but let's say you're a company and you accept Bitcoin and you do invoices or you have payment pages or whatever. One of the best kind of OG solutions in the space that's fully open source is called BTC Pay Server. So you can set up something like that. And what it does is anytime a client goes to pay, it's just like a plugin on your website, and it will generate a brand new Bitcoin address for every single transaction and every single client that you have. Whether it's an invoice or it's like a shop that you have, it will do that for you. I myself, way that I operate, I really enjoy, there's a service called Zaprite.
Yep.
And Zaprite, Parker Lewis is behind
Yep.
it, and a few other guys. And you can basically, they've got this nice setup where you can create invoices or payment pages or whatever it may be. And they say, okay, well, when you receive a payment that's on chain, where's it going to go? And you just copy and paste some information, and it's your own Bitcoin wallet. So Zaprite doesn't hold it. It just goes directly into your own Bitcoin wallet, and it automates a new address every single time.
For the end user to see a new address every time.
Exactly.
But then Zaprite sends it to your same address. So let's just say hypothetically, so you have your...
No, they don't. They don't send it to your same address. You've provided something called an XPub. That basically sits there, and an XPub is the ability to generate a new address at will without giving up the credentials to spend.
Okay. So then you have your main account that you're going to receive into, because you said you have to pay your bills and then you keep whatever's left. So you're going to have your main account that it's received into, but the customer sees a fresh address, and then when it goes through Zaprite, that's going to generate a fresh address, and then nobody will ever see your main address it goes into?
Yeah, and while my main address and the Zaprite, there's no like singular main address. You can think of it like, it's almost like in the analogy or the metaphor of like the digital vault. It's like there's infinite number of slots that people can slide cash into, and they don't realize it's all for the same vault.
Right.
And so that's what I'm giving Zaprite on the website there, where I send out my invoices.
Yep.
Zaprite basically just has the ability to say, hey, use this slot to slide in some cash into this person's digital vault.
Yep.
And the person doesn't see that it's all just they know they're paying me, but they don't know the other addresses that I've used. I've actually automated mine so that the second I receive a payment through Zaprite, it's automated. So as soon as it lands, it gets coin joined and automatically flows into my cold card.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like I get paid. It's already pretty good because it's a new address for every person, but then it gets coin joined and then it goes into cold storage. So I don't even have to touch it. I send an invoice and all of that just happens.
Got it. Well, that's a wealth of knowledge, and I think that's something for everybody. Number one, you have the ability to take custody. You should. Number two, you can ease into it. Number three, some much more advanced tools. Let me ask you one more question. You got time?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, there's another thesis that I'm sure you're well down the rabbit hole in, and that is that Satoshi actually created two digital scarcities at once. Number one, which is the 21 million coins, but number two is the block space. And that means that there's only about, as of today, and I'm sure technology changes, but I think there's about 400,000 transactions per day that can fit into the 10-minute block. Now, probably with some UTXO management and some AI software, maybe we double, triple, quadruple that, but we're still limited. And so 8 billion people aren't going to be able to use that. And so it seems like most people, as we get further along, actually will probably never be on the main layer one, and will never actually self-custody, and will never do this. And so I'm just curious, number one, do you believe that to be true? And then if so, then number two, why push everybody into self-custody knowing that in the hopefully not too far off future, that might all just go away?
Yeah, no, this is a good question. And what I believe is, one, I think you're right. Obviously, not every single person is going to be accessing on-chain Bitcoin and holding UTXOs themselves. And two, also true, most people, their interactions with Bitcoin are going to be, in terms of being self-sovereign, will be layer 2 solutions. So two implications there. One is these on-chain kind of privacy metrics we're talking about, that goes away, because the layer 2 stuff already gives the end user much better privacy. So that's a win. But then how do we deal with the idea of self-custody? And so I think a couple things are going to come to fruition. One is going to be the idea of non-ruggable small community solutions, kind of like federations. We see a good example of something like this right now would be the Liquid Network. And it's quite large, obviously, comparatively in terms of amount of funds, but the idea being that you have very identifiable key holders that are, throughout the community or geographically dispersed or whatever, but you need a large threshold of those people to collude and work together to rug pull the community, which vastly reduces, like, would I trust an individual or a single company with my Bitcoin? No. Would I trust a combination of 20 different entities that 17 of them won't collude together in order to rug pull me? Maybe. And so I think things like that are going to come up, whether it be, Fediment is an example of that. But there is also going to be the ability, and there currently is with some layer 2 solutions, the ability of having part ownership of a single UTXO or a single piece of Bitcoin, like the bills I was talking about in your wallet, where you aren't incurring on-chain transactions and fees by transacting, but if you ever wanted to, you could unilaterally exit and take your Bitcoin with you on chain. It may be an expensive endeavor to do so, and you probably avoid that typically, but it cuts down on the amount of transactions day to day that are happening, and those are mainly reserved for large movements of capital. And you can transact in a layer 2 way that's more private, doesn't incur fees or incurs very, very low fees, but it still gives you the ability at any point to unilaterally exit to on-chain. So these are the kinds of things that we're looking at down the line.
So then the answer is that there will be solutions at some point when there needs to be solutions for that. Until then, custody your own Bitcoin, manage it. And then when the problem arises where the block space is too valuable, too expensive, then you can move into a different solution.
We are witnessing the creation of an entirely new monetary system, and we have the growing pains of seeing the ground level, the foundation of that being built, using the equivalent of worldwide physical gold settlement for day-to-day transactions right now, and then seeing each layer being built and then having to hop to the next layer and learn the next new thing. Whereas in the future, people will just come in, it will be an easily fully established thing, and they won't have to learn, oh, this is how the base layer and then the second layer and the third layer.
Yeah.
They'll just use it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good spot to end, Ben. We're gonna stop it there. Again, like, you're a wealth of knowledge. I was telling you, I think before we start recording, I get asked all the time, because I make so much Bitcoin content, and they're like, help me with security or explain these things to me, and I'm just like, go watch BTC Sessions, like, because your channel is just full of every tutorial. I know you also help people, so you have a service that does that, which these are expensive mistakes to make. Don't make them. I'd highly advise getting someone to help you with that. Where do you want to point people to? What should people be watching for from you?
Yeah, of course. You can find me on YouTube. You can just search BTC Sessions, and we got shows coming all the time, and we've got tutorials every single week, and you can look through there. There's playlists and stuff that you can check out. But if you want to, kind of find an easy place that will take you step by step through some tutorials on the Learn page and everything, just head to Btcsessions.ca. And on the same page, if you do want some more one-on-one help, I've got a team of Bitcoin mentors that I've kind of handpicked and trained, and we can help you through making sure that your setup is rock solid, that you're not making mistakes, that you're not forgetting things, and that you're resilient and private and secure. So yeah, Btcsessions.ca is where you can find us, and you can book some one-on-ones.
All right, cool. We'll wrap it up with that. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.